Christmas. It's a time when families try to get together. This year, one family gathering is larger than usual. A father celebrates the season with his children, his ex-wife, and her new lover. They're part of an alternative community that was formed back in the days of peace and love. So when the father goes home alone and no one hears from him, a friend drops by to look in on him. What the friend finds will haunt this community forever. In true crime, investigation and conviction may take years. But every detective knows that the crucial clue is always there, somewhere in the first 72 hours.
I had a dispatch call from our communication center advising of a sudden death. And I got there just after midnight.
The dead man is longtime Killaloo resident Scott Dell. He is found on his farmhouse floor. There's no sign of trauma to Dell's body. Everything at the scene appears to be in order. Almost everything.
There was a table. On that table, there was a wine bottle. There was a wine glass. By looking at it, there appeared to be a different fluid inside the wine. We thought something may have been added to it, and I subsequently looked down the residence for something that may have been left out that could have been added to it. I didn't find anything.
The wine and the wine bottle are sent to the Center of Forensic Sciences for further examination.
There were papers underneath the wine bottle. It was pointed out that the handwriting was Scott Dell's. It was on the notes.
The words angel and envisioning have been written down, but police can make no sense of the notes. They are collected as evidence. Police decide to treat the death as both suspicious and a possible suicide. Police interview Scott Dell's estranged wife, Sherrill. She lives in town with her new partner, Nancy Fillmore. Scott had custody of the Dells' 2 children, but they have been staying with Sherrill and Nancy over the holidays. Sherrill says she and Scott were married for more than 20 years. They separated a few years ago, but remained on good terms.
She'd been speaking with Scott several times over the last 24 hours. It appeared to her that he had been drinking as his speech was getting slurred. She was concerned for his well-being.
She talked about his cancer coming back out of remission and that he only had a very short time to live. She also talked about how he was very depressed and that Scott did not want to suffer through any additional cancer treatment. He wanted to die in their farmhouse.
Sherrill believes Scott's health problems drove him to kill himself. Police send the body to Ottawa for an autopsy.
The information that I had indicated that he had a cancer. So when I dissected the body, I looked for any residual cancer or any recurrent cancer.
Dr. Acharya fails to find what she's looking for.
I did not see any cancer, but I took some sections from there to study microscopically. But even the microscopy failed to show any residual cancer.
The autopsy does reveal fluid inside Scott Dell's lungs.
The fluid in the lung would indicate that he was in cardiorespiratory failure. He may have had an overdose of some drugs or medications. Before I made any decision, I had to wait for the results of his blood and urine samples.
In Killaloo, Scott Dell's friends and neighbors gathered to pay their last respects. It's a close-knit community, more like a family than a town. People have a hard time accepting that one of their own has suddenly died.
Scott was a friend of the heart to me. A mutual friend called and told me he had died. I didn't believe her. So I'm on that phone trying to call Scott. You can't die, you're my friend. We talk together every day. I was very sad.
In Ottawa, Dr. Acharya receives the toxicology results.
When I got the reports, it indicated that his blood had a higher level of ethylene glycol.
Ethylene glycol is better known as automobile antifreeze. A high concentration of it turns up in the wine police found at Scott Dell's farmhouse.
Ethylene glycol is also known as the sweet killer.
Ingesting large amounts of this sweet-tasting, odorless liquid can be fatal.
It's not that uncommon to commit a suicide with ethylene glycol.
72 hours into the investigation, police have every reason to believe Scott Dell took his own life. What they don't know is why. They decide to interview Dell's ex-wife again. Sherrill insists Scott believed he was dying. Then she reveals something she was reluctant to bring up the first time. Sherrill suspected Scott had been sexually abusing their children. The night before he died, she says Scott finally admitted it was true.
And this was the first time that Scott had confessed to all of the sexual abuse of those children.
Police decide the notes found in Scott Dell's farmhouse belonged to a desperately guilt-ridden man. The death is ruled a suicide, and the case is closed. Not everyone in Killaloo is happy with this. Scott's friends say he was a draft dodger who may have fled the Vietnam War, but who loved his life here. They just can't see him killing himself.
I didn't believe them. I know Scott, and it's just not in his character.
18 months later, Sherrill Dell's lover, Nancy Fillmore, comes forward with allegations that Scott Dell didn't commit suicide at all. For the past year and a half, Scott Dell's death has been ruled a suicide, and his case has been closed. Now Nancy Fillmore comes forward with the story of what she says really happened.
She was upset. She was anxious, yet still apprehensive to disclose what it was she wanted to tell us in detail.
The first thing Fillmore tells Detective Leppard is that she and Sherrill Dell have split up.
Their intimate relationship had ended at Sherrill Dell's choosing for another male. Fillmore spoke at length about how she felt betrayed by Sherrill Dell.
Fillmore says Sherrill often spoke of how Scott sexually abused the Dell's children.
This had a very significant impact upon her, having been from an abusive background as well. She had been led to believe that Scott was a threat to Sherrill, the children, and what Nancy had hoped would become her family.
Fillmore now believes Sherrill lied about the abuse. Then Fillmore discloses what she has been holding back. Scott Dell was murdered, and she was an accomplice.
She had purchased automotive antifreeze and that she also had purchased a bottle of wine.
Fillmore says Sherrill created the lethal mixture, gave Scott the wine, and convinced him to drink it.
Nancy now was feeling that she had been lied to. She now realized that she, in fact, had killed an innocent man.
Police need to talk to Sherrill Dell about Scott's death. Sherrill insists the guilt Scott felt about abusing their children is what caused him to take his own life. She says Nancy Fillmore is unstable. She has a drinking problem and is on medication, and has been harassing Sherrill ever since the two of them broke up.
Sherrill Dell made several allegations about Nancy Fillmore setting fire to her home, vandalizing her property. She also suggested that Nancy had been rough with her children. After speaking with both Sherrill Dell and Nancy Fillmore, it was clear to us that we were very much involved in a back and forth, she said allegations.
Police decide to reopen the case, this time as a possible homicide. Leppard realizes he will have to interview hundreds of people to find out what really happened to Scott Dell that night. He starts with longtime Killaloo resident Elsa Steenberg.
She was a wonderful source of information about Scott's personality, his character, his state of mind prior to his death. She talked about his love for life, his plans for the future.
Leppard asks Steenberg if she thinks Scott Dell may have been abusing his children.
When I first heard the allegations, I didn't believe them for a split of a second. Scott was an amazing person. He's amazing father, very gentle.
Everywhere we would turn, we found more information that described Scott Dell as a very dedicated family man, very much committed to his children, very optimistic, took a very positive approach to life.
It appears Nancy Fillmore has been telling the truth. Scott Dell doesn't sound like a child abuser, nor someone who would take his own life. Leppard learned Sherrill was able to manipulate Scott, even after their divorce.
She was very enticing. She had a magic about her that people wanted to tap into. Sherrill put on these little acts where it would seem as if she was helpless, that she needed someone to take care of her. And Scott was the perfect person for that, the perfect caregiver. She had him wrapped around her little finger.
Sherrill started to emerge as one who regularly manipulated people close to her to ensure that she got what she wanted.
It's almost like part of her personality is missing. It's all about her.
Manipulating someone is one thing. Murdering them is another. Why would Sherrill want Scott dead? Leppard learns that in the event of Scott's death, Sherrill stood to get both the family property and sole custody of the children.
It was clear in the evidence that we were able to discover that she wanted that farmhouse, and she wanted custody of the children for the purposes of child benefits, and would stop at nothing to get that.
Leppard still needs proof Sherrill Dell murdered her ex-husband. He again interviews Nancy Fillmore. She says Sherrill carefully planned Scott's murder.
Fillmore advises that she was present when Sherrill Dell made a call to the Poison Control Center.
Sherrill said she needed information because she was the caregiver of a young man who had just consumed antifreeze.
She also allegedly described the young male as weighing the same weight as what Scott weighed at his time of death. She continued to press the poison control nurse about information about antifreeze and how much it would take to kill a human being.
Leopard now has critical information. He calls poison control for access to their records. If he can corroborate Fillmore's statement, he can lay murder charges against Sherrill Dell. What's more, he has an eyewitness who can back those charges up. But that's all about to change. Nancy Fillmore has just been found dead in her home, the victim of a fire. Leopard is stunned. Fillmore had become his primary witness.
The toughest moment in this investigation was when we were notified of the fire death of Nancy Fillmore.
Police learn a local resident named Brent Crawford had bragged to his friends about killing Fillmore. Crawford confesses to the crime to an undercover officer. He claims someone paid him $750 to do it. Police aren't surprised to learn that person was Sherrill Dell. Before police can follow up on Crawford's claim, the Poison Control Center contacts Leopard. He drives to Ottawa to examine their files.
I had spent the best part of 3 days reviewing thousands of calls that had come in.
Nurses at the center make detailed reports of every phone call they receive. One call in particular catches Leopard's attention.
In this instance, the narrative about the call was strikingly similar to what Fillmore had told us. It became remarkably clear to me that we had real evidence to support what Fillmore had told us, that Scott Dell had in fact been murdered.
Leopard arrests Sherrill Dell for her ex-husband's murder. At the trial, the community finally learns what happened that night. Early that evening, Nancy Fillmore brought Sherrill the wine and the antifreeze. She really believed she was protecting the Dell children from Scott's abuse. From her call to the Poison Control Center, Sherrill knew exactly how much antifreeze was a lethal dose. The sweet killer was to be her murder weapon. Police found it within the first 72 hours of their investigation. But the key to Sherrill's murder plan was Scott's desire for a reconciliation.
If he could fix the family, if the family could get back together, that would make him happy.
That night, Sherrill invited Scott over to the house.
He had been told that Sherrill had had a dream about their reconciliation. And in her dream, he was to drink a bottle of wine, and when doing so, he would have visions about their reconciliation.
She would lead him on by saying, right now I'm a lesbian, but I may not always be a lesbian.
Sherrill tells Scott to be sure and call her when he drinks the homemade wine.
Scott returns to the farmhouse and consumes the contents. While doing so, he's calling Sherrill regularly.
Sherrill keeps Scott on the phone for hours to ensure he continues to drink.
He's writing down what he was envisioning during those phone calls and while he was consuming the wine. And he starts a note out that says, I'm envisioning your angel spirit. I'm envisioning us together.
As Scott dreams of getting back together with Sherrill, the antifreeze continues to do its work. Scott calls Sherrill one last time.
Sherrill had said to Scott, "You can let go now. The angels will take care of you."
Sherrill did everything she could to have Scott's death ruled a suicide, and she almost got away with it. What she wasn't expecting was that Nancy Fillmore would come forward, and for doing so, the evidence suggests Fillmore paid for it with her life. An open, accepting community like Killaloo was the perfect place for a calculating person like Sherrill Dell.
Sherrill had so much power because we gave it to her. Scott was unable to let go of Sherrill. It wouldn't matter what she did, he would forgive her. All he wanted was to be with Sherrill. If Scott was able to, he would even forgive Sherrill for murdering him. That's how much he cared about her.
Sherrill Dell was convicted of the first-degree murder of Scott Dell. She was sentenced to life imprisonment. Sherrill was never convicted for the murder of Nancy Fillmore. Brent Crawford received a life sentence for that murder. The stories on 72 Hours are true. The detectives and forensic scientists are the ones who actually worked on the case.